Do you ever feel completely certain about something, only to discover you were missing the bigger picture? That moment when you realize your confidence was built on shaky ground. It's humbling, maybe even unsettling. But what if that discomfort is actually the doorway to something deeper? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, spent his life exploring how our minds work, and he uncovered a surprising truth. The more we cling to being certain, the more we might be fooling ourselves. He once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In other words, what we don't know about ourselves often controls us more than what we do know. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, the way your brain digs in its heels when someone challenges your perspective. Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they feel safe, like well-worn paths in a forest. But Jung noticed something fascinating. Beneath our surface-level thinking, there's a whole hidden world of instincts, biases, and deeper wisdom that we often ignore. Think about the last time you reacted strongly to something, only to later wonder why you felt so strongly. Or remember when you realized a childhood belief wasn't quite true, like finding out the tooth fairy wasn't real. That shift from certainty to curiosity is a tiny glimpse of what Jung was talking about. Our minds are wired to simplify things, to create neat little boxes for everything. It's how we navigate the world without getting overwhelmed. But Jung believed this instinct can also trap us. When we're too available, too eager to accept our first thoughts as truth, we miss the richer, messier, and often more meaningful layers underneath. It's like staring at a painting and only noticing the colors, not the brushstrokes or the emotion behind them. The power of being unavailable, in Jung's view, isn't about ignoring the world. It's about creating space to question our own automatic responses. Imagine you're in an argument and you're absolutely sure you're right. Your body tenses, your voice rises. It's almost like you're on autopilot. But then, for just a second, you pause. You wonder, what if I'm missing something? That moment of hesitation, that willingness to step back, is where growth happens. Jung called this the tension between the ego, the part of us that wants to be in control, and the unconscious, the vast inner world we barely understand. It's uncomfortable, but it's also where real insight is born. We all have stories we tell ourselves about who we are and how the world works. Some of them are helpful, others keep us stuck. Jung's work invites us to question those stories, not to tear ourselves down, but to uncover what's actually true. For example, you might believe you're bad at public speaking because of one embarrassing moment years ago. That story feels true, so you avoid speaking up, which reinforces the belief. But what if that's just one small piece of a much bigger picture? What if your mind latched onto that story because it was easier than facing the vulnerability of trying again? This is where the power of being unavailable comes in. When we're always available to our own assumptions, we never give ourselves the chance to see beyond them. Jung taught that by creating space, by stepping back from our immediate reactions, we allow deeper wisdom to emerge. It's not about doubting everything or over-analyzing every thought. It's about balance. Like a gardener who knows when to water and when to let the soil rest, we can learn when to engage and when to step back. Think about the last time you made a decision in a hurry, only to regret it later. Maybe you sent a text in anger or bought something impulsively. In those moments, you were too available to the emotion to the impulse, to the immediate desire. But when you pause, even for a few breaths, something shifts. You might still feel the emotion, but it doesn't own you. That's the unconscious becoming conscious. That's Jung's insight in action. This cracks open a whole new way of seeing the world, where being unavailable isn't about ignoring others, but about reclaiming your own space. At first, it feels simple, like stepping back from the noise to catch your breath. We start noticing how often we say yes when we mean no, or how quickly we react to every ping and notification. It's easy to see the value in being less available when life feels cluttered. The idea is fresh, almost exciting. We imagine more time, more peace, and more control. But this is just the beginning. Then comes the confusing middle, where things get messy. You might be someone who resists change at first, or maybe you dive in head first, only to hit unexpected walls. Suddenly, being unavailable feels lonely or even rude. People react strangely when you don't respond right away. You question yourself. Am I being selfish? Is this really working? Most of us feel uneasy during transitions, and this one is no different. Carl Jung called this the shadow work, the part of growth where we face the discomfort of breaking old patterns. It's not just about ignoring your phone. It's about confronting why you felt compelled to always be on in the first place. The middle phase is where knee-jerk reactions clash with thoughtful responses. Jung described this as the tension between our impulsive ego and our deeper, wiser self. The ego wants to please, to fit in, to avoid conflict. But the wiser self knows that true freedom comes from choosing when to engage and when to step back. Slowly, a new clarity emerges. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, or noticing how much energy you used to waste on autopilot. The discomfort of the middle phase starts to make sense. It was never about making life harder, but about making it more intentional. We begin to see that being unavailable isn't a rejection of others, but a commitment to ourselves. It's the difference between reacting out of habit and responding from a place of choice. Jung believed that real growth happens in these moments of tension, where we're forced to reconcile who we've been with who we want to become. In everyday life, this looks like small but powerful shifts. Maybe you leave your phone in another room during dinner, or you take an extra hour to yourself on weekends without explanation. At first, it feels unnatural, even guilty. But over time, you realize how much of your energy was spent managing other people's expectations instead of your own needs. The Barnum effect reminds us that we're all prone to doubting ourselves during change. Phrases like, "You might feel out of place at first," or "many." People struggle with this, ring true, because transitions are universally awkward. But that awkwardness is where the magic happens. We start noticing how much calmer we feel when we're not constantly on call. The people who matter adjust, and the ones who don't fade away. It's not about isolation, it's about curation. You begin to distinguish between urgency and importance, between noise and signal. The knee-jerk reactions, saying yes too fast, rushing to fix things that aren't yours to fix, start to lose their grip. Instead, you respond from a place of clarity, not obligation. Jung saw this as the integration of the self, where we stop being driven by unconscious habits and start living with purpose. The tough middle phase, the one filled with doubt and second-guessing, is where most of us get stuck. But it's also where the real work happens. Jung taught that challenges aren't roadblocks, they're invitations to grow. When you feel the urge to revert to old patterns, that's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're changing. Most of us feel uneasy during transitions because growth requires us to let go of what's familiar, even if it wasn't serving us. By the end of this journey, the power of being unavailable becomes obvious. It's not a trick or a hack. It's a way of life. You start to see how much of your time and energy was spent on autopilot, and how much more you have when you choose where to direct it. The discomfort of the middle phase, the uncertainty, the pushback from others, the internal guilt, starts to feel like a necessary part of the process. Through this discomfort, we begin to see the cracks in what we once thought was solid ground. It's unsettling, like standing on a floor that shifts just enough to make you question your balance. But here's the thing. Those cracks let in the light. They show us where we've been clinging to ideas or habits that no longer serve us, where we've been wearing shoes that pinch our toes but convinced ourselves they were comfortable. This is where the real work begins, not in resisting the discomfort, but in leaning into it, curious about what it might reveal. At first, it's easy to mistake this unease for something gone wrong. We might even try to patch over it, to smooth things out and return to the way they were. But the discomfort persists, a quiet insistence that something deeper is asking for our attention. And if we let it, this becomes the doorway. It's not about fixing or forcing, but about listening. What if the discomfort isn't a problem to solve, but an invitation to grow? You'll likely find daily decisions coming easier as you start to trust this process. The old weight of overthinking begins to lift, not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because you're no longer fighting against yourself. It's like realizing you've been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and one by one, you're setting them down. Some of those rocks were handed to you. Expectations, assumptions, old stories about who you're supposed to be. Others, you picked up along the way, thinking you needed them. But now, without that weight, your steps feel lighter. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much. The things that used to spark irritation or anxiety now seem smaller, like background noise you can tune out. It's not that life suddenly becomes perfect, but your relationship to it shifts. You start to see how much of your energy was spent reacting to things that didn't really matter, or trying to control what was never yours to hold. And in that seeing, there's a kind of freedom, a loosening of the grip. This isn't about arriving at some final destination. It's about the gradual unfolding of understanding, like a plant turning toward the sun without needing to be told how. You might catch yourself in moments of unexpected clarity, realizing that a fear you've carried for years no longer feels like yours. Or you'll notice a quiet confidence growing, not because you have all the answers, but because you're learning to trust the questions. Together, we discover that growth isn't about becoming someone entirely new, but about uncovering who we've been all along beneath the layers of should and supposed to. It's in the small moments, the deep breath before responding, the pause before reacting, the willingness to sit with uncertainty instead of rushing to fill the space. These are the places where the old patterns start to loosen, where we begin to feel the possibility of something different. And here's the beautiful thing. The more we allow ourselves to be present in this process, the more we notice how much of our struggle came from resisting it. We've been taught to fear the unknown, to see discomfort as a sign of failure. But what if it's the opposite? What if it's the sign that we're finally paying attention? Carl Jung once described this kind of freedom like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit. You didn't realize how much they were pinching until you slipped them off, and suddenly you could feel the ground beneath your feet again. That's what this journey offers. Not a flashy transformation, but the quiet, profound relief of coming home to yourself. So keep going. Not because you have to, but because you're starting to see how much more is possible when you stop fighting the current and let it carry you. The discomfort doesn't disappear, but it becomes something you can move with instead of against. And in that movement, there's a kind of grace, a gentle reminder that you're exactly where you need to be. Together, we're learning to walk lighter, to trust the unfolding, and to recognize that the cracks in the ground weren't there to trip us up. They were there to let the light in. And that light, it turns out, was always ours.